So Joe Biden has won Arizona. The 11 electoral votes for Arizona will be going to Joe Biden. This basically runs up the score 290 to 217. The only two states that are left are North Carolina and Georgia. Now, Georgia is going to have a runoff after going to Joe Biden, but the margins were close. This is the first time a Democrat has won in my living memory in Georgia. So there's that, which may be a sea change. I can't think of the woman's name that ran for governor, Abrams. She registered like 500,000 people in Georgia in her after her failed run. And honestly, Biden and that win in Georgia he needs to send her flowers, to put it mildly. So Joe Biden is running up the score at this point. North Carolina and Georgia. It's just counting, right? I mean, North Carolina still hasn't figured out who won that race. If I'm not mistaken, the last time I saw Trump looked like he was going to win North Carolina, but Joe Biden seems to have won Georgia. But again, there's going to be a runoff. Either way, 290, 217. Biden has won this election. Pennsylvania has thrown out a few votes, but again, the margins are so large in many of these states that the few votes that Trump might get kicked here or kicked there is not in and of itself enough to change the outcome of the race. Unless something dramatic happens, I'm going with the idea that Joe Biden won, because there's no reason for me to take a contrary perspective. Doesn't mean Trump is not taking a contrary perspective. And these guys have been getting more insane in regards to the harebrained theories that they're coming up with to try to explain how Donald Trump lost. Giuliani in this has to easily take the cake. Of everybody saying all of these things, I saw this person count, and then the other person came out and recanted, the other poll worker recanted, even though the person said they didn't recant, despite the fact that supposedly they have a signed document talking about recanting. Whatever. Giuliani takes the cake. Giuliani, I'm going to let you hear the harebrained scheme, but it involves Nicolas Maduro, Hugo Chavez's ghost, in a bid that eventually ends up getting Joe Biden elected. No, seriously. That's basically the hypothesis, the theory. Welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you the opportunity for allowing me to do so. This has gotten ridiculous. This is getting every bit as much as ridiculous as Russiagate. I think the difference is, Russiagate, you had about 20-30% of the public that actually full well believed it and was in full-blown Trump derangement syndrome, bulging neck veins and everything else. This doesn't have as many takers, meaning you had like maybe 5% of the public that basically thought that Trump might have been robbed, but the rest of the public, for the most part, are either doubtful or outright don't believe it. And I have to be honest, the harebrained schemes that these guys are coming with are not making it any better. If you have evidence, show it. If you have something to prove and demonstrate, show it. And the problem is that recounting the votes in and of itself is not enough, because recounting the votes is just recounting whatever it tabulated in the first place. You would have to do some kind of like spot check where you can check the name versus the vote tally, et cetera, et cetera. And they're not doing that unless you have something to show for it outside of you just not being willing to concede a loss. Pennsylvania has kicked out a few of the votes. But again, the margins are so wide that a few of the votes that are getting kicked out here or there is not necessarily enough to change the election. It would have to be something major, something on the level of the Supreme Court, Bush v. Gore, or something on the level where Donald Trump can basically create enough confusion to kick it down the can while it can go to the House of Representatives. I know some people on the Democratic side are terrified that Donald Trump is going to create a coup. I'm greatly doubtful of that. This reminds me of the Russiagate stuff in regards to the way people are thinking about this stuff. But I would say this: he is definitely in the open, trying by hook or by crook to stay in office. And whether it's an issue of ego, whether it's an issue of him thinking he's going to be locked up after the race, I would imagine he knows he's not part of the club or the in crowd with these people. He's trying everything he can to stay in office. I think a lot of this has to do with ego and just the sheer embarrassment of it all. But I would imagine lurking in the back of his mind may be the jail sentence also. I would say this, though. If you're going to make this argument and you're going to create these kind of legal challenges, you better shut Giuliani up. Because what he is saying here is harebrained. Fully. Openly. Ridiculous at the height of his lungs.
An update on Dominion, and how important do you believe the concerns that are being expressed in a number of states about the ability of these machines not to be hacked?
Well, first of all, the machines can be hacked. There's no question about that. Their machines can be hacked, but it's far worse than that. Well, Dominion is a company that's owned by another company called Smartmatic through an intermediary company named Indra. Smartmatic is a company that was formed way back in about 2004, 2003, 2004. You're going to be astonished when I tell you how it was formed. It was formed really by three Venezuelans who were very close to the dictator Chavez of Venezuela, and it was formed in order to fix elections. That's the company that owns Dominion. Dominion is a Canadian company, but all of its software is Smartmatic software. So the votes actually go to Barcelona, Spain. So we're using a foreign company that is owned by Venezuelans who are close to Chavez, are now close to Maduro, having.
Just stop for a moment. Before going into the people basically saying that he is talking out of his ass and that these machines were used in multiple states. And in some of these states, Donald Trump seemed to not have an issue with, only the states that he lost. Hugo Chavez, dictator, apparently, to Rudy Giuliani, gets some kind of software made that flips vote tallies, and he works with Maduro to get him. I suppose Maduro is working with these guys who gives them software that allows Joe Biden to get elected. I mean, this is what he's arguing. He's making the point that Nicolas Maduro, Hugo Chavez, or dead Hugo Chavez, was involved in helping Joe Biden get elected through this company Dominion. Dominion software wasn't just used in Pennsylvania. It was also used in Michigan and Georgia. In Michigan, 2 counties had issued, this is Newsweek, 2 counties had issued with the vote counts. Those were not caused by Dominion software. Those were human error. Meaning, the issues with the software wasn't with the software, at the very least, not in Michigan. It was with human beings. The Michigan Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, disputed the claim about Dominion software causing errors in the vote count. Michigan elections were conducted fairly, effectively, and transparently and are an accurate reflection of the will of the Michigan voters, she said in a statement. The erroneous reporting of unofficial results from Antrim County was a result of accidental error on the part of Antrim County clerk. An equivalent and the equipment and software did not malfunction and all the ballots were properly tabulated. However, the clerk accidentally did not update the software used to collect voting machine data and report unofficial results. The software did not cause the misallocation of votes. It was a result of human error. Now, I'm aware that some people will be like, yeah, man, I don't buy that. I entirely believe that it was Hugo Chavez's ghost and Nicolas Maduro who hate Trump so much that they were somehow involved in getting Donald Trump a loss. This is basically Russiagate using Venezuelans. Do you really want to switch countries like this? If you thought Russiagate was ridiculous, this is just as ridiculous. Not more so, but just as ridiculous as Russiagate. Democrats don't believe that, despite the fact that you've seen it over and over and over and over again, where this stuff gets, where one plank after the next falls apart. Hell, Stone was prosecuted for not being a link. I hope you realize how wild that is. All of those Democrats were cheering Roger Stone getting prosecuted, missing the point that the prosecution is because he was not a link between Trump and Russia in the WikiLeaks way, of the way they were trying to say it. It undermines the entire conspiracy theory. Switching out Russians for Venezuelans is not any better. It's just not. If Donald Trump full well believes there was voting fraud, then Donald Trump should show it. And up to this point, Donald Trump had said, even before the election, that the only way he could lose this election is if he was cheated, going so far as to call mail-in ballots in and of themselves cheating, which they are not. He could have told his people to go to the send their stuff by mail. He didn't do that. He wanted his people to show up because he wanted them to show how manly they were by going to the polls. Great. You're going to manually walk yourself out of the White House or likely be carried. I have no belief that Donald Trump is going to retain or remain in the White House in January. And the fact that Trump is saying that he's talking about gearing up for a 2024 run gets across that he himself is not talking about necessarily staying. So this is absurd. And I don't know where this ends. Or at the very least, this doesn't end well. Consider for the moment, you had a situation where Gore v. Bush. Gore backed down because Gore believed that the presidency was more important than his own personal ambitions. John Kerry backed down because he believed the presidency was higher than his own political ambitions. The Republican Party was willing to have unyielding opposition to Obama, even to the point of denying him a Supreme Court pick, even going so far as to mention letting the Supreme Court die on the vine because they believe Hillary Clinton was a lock to win that race. When Trump got elected, the Democratic Party completely went apeshit, screaming about the Russians helping Trump get over the finish line. And what happens now? This election, Trump does the same thing, but with this one, it's now screaming the Venezuelans. The Venezuelans. The media is talking about the Iranians. Trump is talking about the Venezuelans. Like, share, and subscribe. Yes, it is an aggravating process of American politics, and I don't think people in this country realize how fragile the balance is. I think they get up every morning, they're accustomed to the world being there, they're accustomed to that job being there, they're accustomed to their world, they can go play their Xbox, they can have sex with their girlfriends, they turn on the water, the faucet's there, if you live in DC or Maryland, you can go get your pot, all that stuff. And they assume that I think the next day will be the same. Missing how fragile the political system is. Meaning, when it breaks, it's broken. And right now, you have a situation where both political parties have been going at each other like howler monkeys, where the country itself mattered less. I mean, look at COVID deaths. Those things are going through the roof. And they're talking about a second peak there's never been an end to the first peak. There's only been a peak. And so you have this kind of weird situation where the president of the United States is trying to basically steal an election at the exact same time all of these people are dying, basically not fulfilling the presidential duties of the job, yet just trying to hold on to the job. And Biden, who you would think would be trying to knock it out of the park because, this is the opportunity to do so, is not. Milquetoast, inert candidate. I mean, for fuck's sake. This seems to be just a breakdown of the political system, even from the standpoint of a social contract, where the government itself cares, or at the very least, has some barest of thread to the American population. And that doesn't seem to be the case. You had COVID run rampant. All of these people lose their jobs. All of these businesses go belly up. And the president gives $1,200. And Pelosi, meaning Congress, and the president wriggle back and forth with a difference of $400 billion. Mind you, this president spent trillions to plutocrats, increasing taxes of the poor and the middle class in order to give those trillions to the plutocrats. So, yeah, it's utterly astonishing that they will have these back and forths like that. And it's not one or the other. It's both. It's both. Be honest. $2.2 trillion wasn't a huge sum. And Donald Trump, in his right mind, should have just agreed with Pelosi, accepted the money, and then attacked the Republicans in the Senate to try to get that bill passed. That was your best interest in trying to get it passed before the election. Instead, the two of you went back and forth while the American public suffered. Yeah, I can totally understand why Pelosi would lose seats in Congress. I can totally understand why Republicans would gain seats throughout the United States. And unfortunately, I can even understand why Biden would win, which is why I bet Biden would win. I also said that Democrats would control the Senate. We don't know that yet. That most likely will not come true. But who knows? This is 2020 after all.